Ready? All righty. Hi there. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Tolf, in case I don't know you people individual, but that's fine. I know most of you. So I've been collecting this stuff for many, many years. I've known Brian and Jeannie for over 50 years. And I got into this, the medical stuff for World War II. I have a lot of medical stuff from World War I, World War II. I did have later, I've sold that off, but I focused mostly on World War I, World War II. And mostly the reason I did it is when we're reenacting and doing all the displays, everybody was doing the same thing to do a display. Everybody would put the junk on the bunk and have the rifle and a grenade and a hand grenade and all the knives and things. And the kids would come and they'd go right for all that stuff and pick it up and start running at each other with it. So, no. I put out bandages and medical stuff and they all went, ew, and they left me alone, which was perfect. Okay. So, with that said, I have since gotten really into the stuff over the many, many years that I've done this, learning the information as to what, because you see, there's a lot of misinformation out there. This is all, everything on the table is all World War II medical equipment. It is not from 1947 post, it is not. The way to tell originally is there's a serial number on almost, if it's not dated World War II, which a lot of it is, there's a serial number, a product, a stock number basically, on any of the stuff. World War II stuff, the stock number is either a 5-digit number or a 7-digit number. Early in the war, they were 5 digits, usually starting with a 9 for bandages, other things with a 3, depended on the item that it was. Later on, as they improved things, like they went from a cloth tourniquet to a rubber tourniquet, they added 2 more digits. So that's the reason for it. It would be the same first 5, the last 2 would be a different to prove, okay, this is tourniquet, cloth tourniquet, and then you have a rubber tourniquet, so that would be the difference in that. Later on, the hyphens, if you see the 7-digit number, but it has little dashes in between it, those started in 1947, so they're not World War II. Then later on, they go from those numbers, they go to the DSA numbers, they came out, excuse me, in the early 60s. Then you got the NSA, the NSN, the National, I can't even remember what it is now. But it's a different number, that's like the late 70s into the 80s. So the Vietnam stuff will all either be DSA or NSN. Now, down to this stuff, the typical medic would have carried 2 bags, which have an expanding bottom. This can be unlaced and the bag doubles in size. And most of them went out, they had this laced up because you had a basic load. The extra load would be for a special invasion, D-Day, crossing the Rhine, things like that. They would carry as much as they could. The private's kit, as it's known, had these implements in it here. You carried the 2 bags, and they hook to these suspenders, like this. They're very wide, makes it very comfortable to carry. You would carry your other gear underneath, and this would go on top. So if you had suspenders with a pistol belt carrying canteens and stuff, this went over it to hold the bags. You had, and you also were issued to carry in there were 2, what they call litter straps. Now you could take it off and carry 1 bag individual as a shoulder strap, but the reason they're called a litter strap is when you are helping as a aid man to carry someone off the field, you would take these and through this little D-ring here, of course I picked up a pair that has a small D-ring, there you go, that would hook there and it would hook on the back and you would adjust it so you're carrying the litter. Now you're getting tired, you have the handles of the litter go through this and you can let go. And it's being held by the harness. So you're holding it from your shoulders, you can relax your arms for a little bit until you get the strength back in them and then you can pick it up and as you're walking. So that would be that. Each medic was issued an EMT book, an emergency medical tag booklet. It holds 20 information tags with carbon copies. When they had a chance, they would fill them out with the man's name, information of his unit and everything, and what they did for the man. So when he was sent back he had to go back to a hospital unit or something, this would be tied on him, the copy would be in here. The doctor could then go, oh, okay, he's got a leg splint with a tourniquet on, we have to check that. Or he's been given morphine, or he's been bandaged with a broken arm. So that's what the medical tags were for. Each man had his own booklet. You would keep that. When you used it all up, you would go to the supply and just get another one. They were issued safety pins on 2 cards. They had an assortment of compressed gauze bandages, wound dress, the tourniquet, iodine swabs. It's glass filled with iodine. You'd break it and then you just swab it on, keep out infection. They had in the man's pocket was, or even, you know, your first aid pouch that holds 3 things, which I'll show you in a second. And in there was a Carlisle bandage. There was sulfadiazine powder that was sprinkled on from the outside, and there were sulfalatamine pills that the man, unless he had a belly wound, you would take, and that was to prevent infection. That was the big anti-infection medicine back then, was sulfa. Penicillin existed. It had come out in the late 20s through the 30s, but it wasn't in full production, so they didn't issue it. Towards the end of the war, it does get issued and is used by the medical corps, but the big medicine for the infections and things like that was the sulfa powder that they would use. Even in Private Ryan, you see the man, they're sprinkling sulfa powder on everybody when he's wounded. That's to prevent infection. They were issued, they had for extreme pain, they were issued morphine in pre-measured doses in little what's called a syringe. What you did with this, you would take off this glass tube, then there's a needle which has a little pin in the end. So it's like you push that pin in and it broke the inner seal in this little tube. Then you threw the glass part away and you took it and you rammed it in the man's thigh and squeezed it all in. It's a pre-measured dose. Then you either took this with a safety pin and pinned it to the man's clothes, or you somehow marked him with the letter M to show that he had been given a dose, so nobody else gave him a dose, too much and you'd kill him. So you would mark it on, hopefully, they were told, the forehead. They did give you a grease pencil which lasted about 30 seconds. So you threw that away, and then you took your finger. If the man was bleeding, you used his blood and you just put a big letter M on his forehead or on his clothes somewhere. Let's move on. The typical medical helmet, I have a couple here. These are originals. There was no official Army regulation on marking the helmets. Was basically what they were told was put a cross on your helmet. That was it. Not how many, where. So each individual unit kind of came up with their own idea. So you'll find some that are only 1, that are 2 front and back, that are only side and side. I've seen ones that are 5, that have all 4 with 1 on the top even too. Then you have this is kind of neat, this tombstone variation. You'll also see them, and it's just the red cross, but they're outlined in white. So there's 1,000 different variations of medical helmets. The official regulation for it only came out in 1947, and that was for 3. They had 1 on the front, and then they had a big one here and a big one here. So it was like 3. This was kind of like the center of the cross would have been like right here. And this is Army. Navy, you'll very rarely see a Navy medical helmet with this on. There'll be a small one on it, especially European theater, yes. Pacific, not so much. You'll see small ones for shipboard use. Corpsmen that went ashore, nothing. Because Japanese would just, that was the target right there. So the biggest thing for like Navy corpsmen, you'll find a helmet, if you see ones that have like a little 2-inch white circle right here. That was it. Or on the back too sometimes. And that was only for medics that were on beach patrol, that were assigned to units that stayed on the beach during invasions. The ones that went inland with the Marines, nothing. No markings, no armbands, no nothing. Medics and aidmen, as they were also called, everybody thinks you look at combat. Oh, the patrol goes out, it has 6 guys, 7 guys, and you got a medic. That was like never happened. You had 2 aid men for a company. A company is 200 men, and you got 2 guys to take care of 200 men. That was it. And their job, when they were out, they would be called. They could run from company to company if that was doable under fire. Treat the man, call for the stretcher bearers to come and get them. Stretcher bearers were part of the medical detachment, but they were held in the back and went out as needed. 4 men in a stretcher company, hopefully, because it's very, depending how far back the aid station was from the front lines. 4 men could do it easily. 2 men, unless it's really close, it's a struggle to carry a guy for a distance. Then he would be brought back to the aid station. At that point, he would be evaluated, treated. That's where the tag comes in. They would, okay, this is what he had done. Oh, he needs to go back further. He needs major surgery. They would send him back to a clearing company. The clearing company be further back in the lines, and then they would evaluate. They could maybe treat him there if it wasn't so severe, but if it was really, they would put him in and get him back to the field hospital where the doctors would then take over and work. And then you got your like MASH comes in Korean War, but they had a similar thing. It just wasn't called MASH at that time. What else? Let's see what we can do. This over here, this particular item, I have had for many, many years, and this is the first time it has seen the light of day, because I bought it, I checked the mailing label on the box, I bought it 2004, and this is the first time it's been out. It's a training chart that would be put up to teach about, this is the cover sheet. Here's the man who used it. It was used in South Carolina. And it was basically a 4-hour course on first aid that would be trained to infantrymen, soldiers. This would be part of their basic training. And they said okay, do the first 10 charts for the first hour, take a break. And it's teaching them. And it makes the instructor look like a genius because all the information for this is back here. So it looks like I memorized the whole thing. This might be you. And then it goes on. So, all right, you're a soldier, but you're a soldier first. And this is, we're going to show you how to treat your friends after you're done being a soldier. Your job first, if you are an infantryman, your job is to do the mission you were assigned. Take that hill, knock out that machine gun, whatever. And if anybody has been wounded, leave it to a medic. And if you have time later on, you can go back and help. Now, science has been helping you all along, improving medical equipment over World War I. What was used then is now found out here, just like I told you. 3 things in your first aid pouch. This is the little pouch carry on. You have the metal can, you open it up, you get the sulfadiazine pills, you have the sulfalatidine powder, and you have a first aid packet, or the first aid kit to put on the wound. You sprinkle on the wound to kill all these nasty little bugs that are on there. That's the external. Then you have the bandage that you put on the outside. They're all marked. One side says other side to wound, so that's the bandage side, and it's tied around to stop the bleeding and keep the nasty bugs from getting in there. And then you had the pills you were supposed to take with a canteen of water, and then it would work its way in through your bloodstream and get to where it is to prevent infection. The only time you did not take these is if you had a belly wound. They were afraid it would cause more problems than it would solve. Then they taught you about shock and other, how to prevent shock, how to fix a broken arm. This is the only complete whole set I've ever seen. There's 50 sheets in total. There's an instructor's kit.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, sir.
the metal first aid kits,
The vehicle kits.
right?
Right.
What do they come with? No, not the vehicle, the pouches.
Oh,
You got cardboard.
I have all cardboard here.
Yeah, now.
Because that takes up less space to carry in your
Now,
bag.
what was the other ones used?
The metal ones came in your little pouch because it protected it from
Yeah.
bumping into things, falling out.
When do they come in and when do they go out?
All right, well, World War I, you'll even see them back then. They had a can. They're called Carlisles because that's where they were invented, was in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, at the Medical Training Center for the U.S. Army. The first ones I've seen dated with the thing are like 1908. A lot of people said, oh, they came out with the metal ones for World War I so they didn't get poison gas. It's like, well, poison gas didn't exist in 1908. So somebody thought that up. That was just to protect the bandage because you were wearing it right here.
Yeah.
And you're running around, bumping into things, falling on the ground. You'll see a lot of those things, they have the dent from the lifter dot in them from guys falling out, like canteens too. You'll see canteens with 2 dents. That's from falling on the ground and the lifter dot smashing into the canteen and denting it in. They changed from the type they had in World War I, which was a pull ring that ripped the whole thing off around that way. In 1924, they came out with the standard, like the one you see for World War II with the edge around the whole thing, and you pull the edge off. And that's when they also put in the sulfur powder that didn't exist prior to that. It was just a bandage with another bandage with some safety pins and stuff like that.
So those are harder to get than the cardboard.
They made them a lot. I mean, I have some unopened boxes of 10 home that they were issued in. So they're not hard to get, but to find them that are not all mashed up because guys wore them is a little harder.
Okay.
Okay.
I got them in different colors. That's another thing.
Yes, and there was a reason for that too.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yep. Early ones, you'll see, you flip them, they got all the information on the front, when it was made, where it was made, who made it, blah, 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 blah. Flip them over on the back. It'll say contains sulfolatamine powder. Later ones, when they started introducing the penicillin, they took it out. So the later ones won't have that on there. So there's an olive green, there's a darker green, there's salmon colored, like a pinkish, or there's a red.
Yeah, I got both, yeah.
And I believe those, if you look on them, I don't think those have the powder in them. If you flip them over, you gotta read the back and see if it's there. It'll say it's a big circle stamped right into the thing.
Thank you.
Okay. This bag here, they came out with special for the D-Day invasion. This is what they call, collector's terms, I don't know if it was ever called originally, they called it a Utah Beach medical bag. This is a Navy item, actually. If you read on the sides here, it's marked to the Navy, and it also says, oops, there it is, Unit 6. The Navy had, of course, everybody had to have a different terminology for everything. Instead of having a private's kit, an officer's kit, they had a Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4. And it was all different equipment depending on what you needed. One might be all for bandages, just all different types of bandages. Another one would be, medicines and things, or splints, or medical kits or things. Now this, which I didn't even know until recently, okay, there's a lot of pictures, and they seem to only have been used by the Army, at least, on D-Day, on Omaha, on Utah Beach. I've never found a picture of one being used on Omaha. There's a couple of pictures, if you look up, Google D-Day and look up medics treating a medic who had been wounded. He's laying on the beach. Right between them is one of these bags laying right on the beach as plain as day. Now, I always thought they just put stuff in here and loosely. I had this little suitcase that goes right in there. And I always wondered why, hey, why does this only have a handle on one side? Well, that's the reason. You drop it in the bag so you can pull it right out. And then in here, like I said, depending on which unit it actually was, there's a divider. Whoop, mine's gone. But there would be all the boxes of what you had would be stacked in here. And this would be dropped at an aid station when they were setting up. And then they had all the equipment handy. This is like I don't know what, it's like a fiber. It's a weird material, but it's waterproof. Okay. This is the officer's medical kit. They had one bag where the other ones had two, because the officer was doing, he had his own little surgical kit here, little mini surgical kit. Now, for the
Could
big
you hold that up?
for the big operations, this was more like at an aid station. Other things that were for a hospital had, you know, the stuff with the ether and the, or whatever they would knock them out with, and probably ether. And the doctors would be there and the other operating machines and the tables and stuff. But for a quick field thing, these are scalpels that are very sharp. And they would be carried in here, along with some forceps and some scissors and some other cutting. And this is a thermometer, still in the case, with the instructions. Okay, and again, wound tags. The doctor would, or the officer would have much more of the morphine syringes and the sulfalamine powder. Okay.
Hey, Mark, question?
Yes.
You call them an officer, or you call them a doctor, were officers in the field?
They would be at the aid.
physicians?
They would be at the aid station.
Oh, okay.
Right, the ones that would be out would be the enlisted aid man or the NCO. There might be an NCO in charge. He carried some different equipment, carried a little more medication, things like that. The aid man, his basic job was get to the man, stop the bleeding, get him the hell out of there, and then worry about the other stuff. Get the bandage on, stop it tight. If his arm, you know, unfortunately his arm maybe, just get it, tie it, tape it, get him out to where you can work on him without endangering yourself anymore, endangering other people. Get them to a safe location where they can work on them. And the success rate, it shows that it worked, because if you got decent, you know, and you got back to an aid station or something, the chances of survival went up drastically, improved over World War I.
Isn't that true for all of them, talking about Korea, MASH, up into Vietnam, now the medical technology is changing.
It's constantly changing. War is not good, but it speeds up everything of how the experimentation and the need for something. All of a sudden they're working at it much harder and much faster to find better ways to do things. So you're improving the medical conditions. Oh yeah, well look at the Civil War. It's like the guy's working on somebody with a knife and he doesn't even wipe it off, and he's over here cutting this guy up and that, and there's spreading infection all over the place. And then, maybe we shouldn't do that, you know, so let's improve on that. We have drugs that can prevent that. Well, this one's much better, so now they come out with that, and it gets, we have to evacuate them. Well, now we have helicopters for Korea, and then Vietnam, they get better to take them off. The original helicopters in Korea could take 2 guys, on the sides, on the outsides, like the MASH stuff, and then the other things are just late. Now you got the bigger helicopters, and you have the Hueys, and you got the Chinooks, and all the other things that take multiple people off the field. Any questions?
No.
Any others?
Very good.
Yes, Gene.
I have a question. So, did the medics ever carry firearms?
No.
As a rule, they did not?
No, they were not supposed to. Now, didn't say officially they were not, because they were non-combatants. Didn't say the guy couldn't put a 45, especially when you get into the Pacific and the corpsmen and stuff protecting themselves. There are cases of, I forgot already how many Medal of Honors were awarded to medical personnel for protecting their patients.
Hacksaw Ridge.
That was he lowered, but there was one I just read too of a doctor. He was an officer, and I think it was on Iwo, and the Japanese overran the medical station.
He was a dentist, I think.
A dentist, and he picked up like a Thompson, and he was just blasting all the Japanese that were coming through the tent where he had been working. Then he went out and he manned a machine gun, and he sent everybody else back while he held them off, and unfortunately he was killed, but they found like 75 dead Japanese in front of his gun when they did return.
Thank you.
Okay. But officially, yeah, they were not issued sidearms or anything. That's why when you see a medical knife, like they're all bolos, they're all rounded because they're not supposed to be a weapon. They're supposed to be a tool.
So they hacked them.
Okay, anybody want, you come up, you look, you do, I don't know, I don't know what else to say, I guess we're done. No problem.
Jeannie,